This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. You can visit their store by using my referral link in the description below. Hi everyone, I'm Nizzahon, and it's Friday, and that means it's time for another MTG Top 10, the series where I rank cards based on their historical performance at Magic's highest level of competition. Over the years, we've looked at a lot of different creature stat lines in this series, but there's so many different ones in Magic that there's still a ton that we haven't gotten around to. Today, we're taking a look at another one of those, with a look at one of the strongest stat lines around, 3 mana 4/4s. We got a new one in Streets of New Capenna in Topiary Stomper, and this got me to wondering about how they've performed in the past. Obviously, 3 mana for a 4/4 is a pretty amazing rate. It isn't one that they give us a lot of the time. There have only been 35 of them in the long history of Magic, and 10 of them have found at least some success at Magic's highest level of competition, and those are of course the 10 that we'll look at in this video. Before we get started, here's a quick reminder on how I score cards in these videos. A first tier top 8 is worth 2 points. This includes events like Pro Tours and World Championships. And a second tier top 8 is worth 1 point, and this includes events like Grand Prix and Magic Online Challenges. Alright, let's get to the list. At number 10, it is Faithbound Judge. A lot of the cards on this list are 3 mana 4/4s that have sort of a mix of upsides and downsides, and that helps balance just how efficient these creatures are. The Judge, for example, is a 3 mana 4/4 with Flying and Vigilance, but it also has Defender. It does eventually lose Defender, at which point it's quite the formidable attacker, but it takes a while. On top of that, it also has Disturb, and you can play the Judge out of your graveyard as the Cursed Sinner's Judgment, which eventually makes your opponent just lose the game. In the end, the upside definitely outweighs the downside here. So far, it's only managed one top 8 at the Neon Dynasty Championship, where it was played in the sideboard of a blue-white artifact deck. It does have a whole lot of time in Standard left, and it seems like the Judge has at least some chance to gain points going forward, perhaps in more controlling decks. At number 9, it's Hell's Thunder. This 3 mana 4/4 comes with haste and flying, but like a lot of super efficient red creatures, it also sacrifices itself at the end step. In other words, it isn't a creature that's really meant to stick around. It just wants to get in and rumble right away. It also has Unearth, which allows you to bring it back from the graveyard for a single attack. Obviously, all of that means Hell's Thunder is a great fit for aggressive red decks since it can do up to 8 damage, and it's only one card. It gained points in mono-red aggro decks in both Standard and Extended, but it doesn't have any points since 2011, so its future on this list could be in jeopardy. At number 8, it is Ashen Moor Gouger. This 3 mana 4/4 has only downside in the text box since it can't block, but it does cost black-red hybrid mana, expanding the number of decks it could potentially be played in. Unsurprisingly, it was played in mono-red and Rakdos aggro decks in both block and standard, but it hasn't gained any points since 2008. At number 7, it is Lothnu Hellion, which, like Hell's Thunder, is a hasty 3 mana 4/4. It doesn't have flying, but it has the upside of actually being able to stick around. It produces 2 energy when it comes into play, and you have to pay 2 energy during your end step to keep it around. So it comes with the means to keep it in play for at least 2 swings. And most of the decks that played the Hellion had plenty of other ways to produce energy too, so he stuck around for a long time. Haste and this stat line meant that it could do a ton of damage against someone who wasn't ready for it. It gained its points in Rakdos aggro and Gruul energy decks. It doesn't have any points since 2018. At number 6, it's Savage Knuckleblade. So far, all the cards we've seen on this list have at least some downside, but apart from costing 3 different colors of mana, Savage Knuckleblade doesn't have any. This 3 mana 4/4 comes with a slew of activated abilities. It can pump its stats, give itself haste, or return itself to its owner's hand. That last one is useful against removal or sweepers, while the other 2 are obviously more useful for attacking. This is a very aggressive creature, so it should come as no surprise it was featured in Temur aggro decks while it was in Standard. It also has a single point that came in a modern Temur Delver deck, but it doesn't have any points in any format since 2016. At number 5, it is Plumeveil. This 3 mana 4/4 comes with flash and flying, but it also has Defender. Still, the fact you can flash it in means you can get it into play after your opponent attacks, and the Veil can just block and kill things, especially at the stage of the game where you have 3 mana. In those situations, Plumeveil feels kind of like a removal spell that leaves a 4/4 Defender behind. So, unlike most on this list, this is a purely defensive 3 mana 4/4. In block, it was played in control decks, and in standard, it saw main deck play in decks like 5-color control and cruel control, and sideboard play in fairy decks. It's another card that hasn't gained any points in a very long time, and it isn't very likely to gain any more in the future. At number 4, it is Gideon Blackblade. Now, obviously, Gideon doesn't have creature on his printed type line, but he is one enough of the time that I thought it was fair to include him here. He's only a 3 mana 4/4 with indestructible on your turn, and that's sort of a downside, because obviously he can't block and stuff, but it also means he can avoid a lot of creature removal that your opponent could use on their turn, though he's indestructible, so using it on him isn't that effective anyway. But in addition to being this 3 mana 4/4 with indestructibility on your turn, he's also a planeswalker, of course, with 2 good loyalty abilities. His +1 lets you give a powerful keyword to one of your creatures, including indestructible, and his -6 can let you exile a non-land permanent. His primary homes in both Standard and Pioneer have been white weenie decks, but in Standard he was also played in Selesnya Adventures and Orzhov Aggro. He hasn't gained any points since 2020, but I don't think we can count Gideon out entirely in formats like Historic and Pioneer. At number 3, it is Old Growth Troll. This is another 3 mana 4/4 that has a text box that is pure upside, and you can expect to see that the rest of the way. The only downside here, I guess, is that it costs 3 mana of the same color, but the decks the troll has been played in are mono green anyway, partly so they can play this powerful creature consistently. The troll comes with trample, and when it dies, it gives you some pretty nice value. It becomes an aura and attaches to one of your forests. It increases the amount of mana that forest can produce, and gives you the ability to pay 1 and sacrifice it to make a 4/4 trampling troll. So basically, this is a 3 mana 4/4 with a 2-for-1 built in, and that's a very powerful thing to have. In Pioneer, it has gained the most points in Devotion to green decks, where the fact it costs 3 green mana is all upside, since the deck is built around getting a ton of mana out of Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. It's still in Standard and actively putting up points in Pioneer, so it is a very good shot to move up this list going forward. At number 2, it is Loxodon Smiter. This 3 mana 4/4 likes to punish disruptive strategies. For one thing, it's completely uncounterable, and for another, if your opponent makes you discard it, you just get to put it into play for free. The last part might sound like a corner case, but the Smiter was played a ton in Modern during the days of Liliana of the Veil's dominance, and the Smiter had incredible upside against her, since you got to choose what you discarded to her +1. It was nice to have a card that hated on one of the most played cards in the format, that also happened to be a 3 mana 4/4 that was perfectly playable in the main deck anyway. In addition to being a fixture in Modern for the first several years of the format, the Smiter was also played in Standard Selesnya aggro decks. Unfortunately for the Smiter, its power has really been outstripped in Modern in recent years. The fact it doesn't have an enter the battlefield ability or give you some insane value, even if your opponent kills it right away, really makes it hard for it to see play in the format anymore, and as a result, he hasn't gained a point in any format since 2015. Old Growth Troll is likely to pass the Smiter in the coming months. And at number 1, it's Anafenza, the Foremost. She's a 3 mana 4/4 that puts counters on other tapped creatures when she attacks, and she also hates on the graveyard, forcing creatures who die to go to exile instead of the yard. Anafenza's points in Standard all came in various Abzan decks, as well as 4 color Collected Company. Imagine paying 4 mana for a Collected Company and getting Anafenza in some other creature. She was pretty much one of the best things you could hit with that powerful instant. She's also transitioned to Modern, where she's frequently played in human tribal decks, and she's a sideboard card in Pioneer aggro decks who can bring her in against graveyard decks. She doesn't have any points in 2022 yet, but I have a feeling she'll increase her score before the year is out. She doesn't have any points in 2022 yet, but I have a feeling she'll increase her score before the year is out. She has a massive lead over everything else on this list too, so she isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So those are the 10 3 mana 4/4s that have left the biggest impact on competitive Magic. If you want to own any of these super efficient creatures, take a look in the description where you can find a direct Card Kingdom link for each of them. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and like it and share it with others who you think will like it too. If you want to catch up on other MTG top 10s, including several more that look at creature stat lines, you should see some playlists on your screen shortly. And lastly, if you want to go the extra mile in supporting me and the channel, you can on Patreon. Thanks for watching.